Okay, so I have recently mentioned that I'm going to try to post a video that outlines how we keep track of our genetics, as well as how we came up with our identification system and what it looks like. I apologize in advance. I'm using free software for screen capture on my laptop, as well as, unfortunately, an onboard microphone on my laptop. So I hope that this is not too terrible. Let's get going. So when I first got back into the hobby in 2015, I knew that I needed to have some sort of identification system in place, but I did not know how I wanted to do it, what have you. So I just used something that I see a lot of other breeders use, something that looks like Tremper Albino, Eclipse, Possible Het, Blizzard, for example. And while that's great, tells you a lot about the gecko, it doesn't account for things like proving out that Het Blizzard the next season. Then the identification number would have to change. And I wanted identification numbers that start when the gecko hatches and goes on indefinitely, so the number is static rather than dynamic. I still use these two-letter abbreviations, and here's a file I have where I keep track of which two-letter combinations I use for each morph, line, etc. I don't own all of these or work with all of these, but I keep track of them in that manner. And then I also have in this document how I keep track of, or the order in which I try to name each gecko that I may be working with. Going down the list. As far as the actual files that I keep track of everything in, I have 4 files that I keep and maintain. I could probably condense that down into 3 files if I combined the male and female files into an adult/breeder file or something like that. But because the male and female files look different, which you'll see in a minute here, I think that I'll keep them separate for the time being. Before moving on to actually look at some of the files, I think I'll go over the identification numbers a little bit. The males that I've received from other breeders through the years, numbers look something like that. Nothing special, just keeping track of the males in order. Obviously next one would look like that, so on and so forth. And then same with the females that I've secured from other breeders, they look like that, and so on and so forth. And in 2017, when I started dropping babies, is when I actually changed over to the new identification system, and it will look something like this. The 17 is the beginning of the identification number. Then it will have a P that stands for pairing, which I'll explain further as we move on. And we'll say this was pairing 1 of that year and hatchling number 1 of that year. That is what 2017 pairing number 1, hatchling number 1 would look like. That number will stick with that gecko from then until it goes off to a customer or it is held back as a holdback. So a person might ask themselves, why would you want an ID number to even look like that? And I started out wanting an ID number that would give me as much information about the gecko as possible just by looking at it. Unfortunately, that's pretty hard to do. I had toyed around with ideas such as having numbers that look like that, but imagine how terrible that would look in a generation or two when you had something like that. So it would show mother, father, etc. So with a number that looks like this, you start out knowing the season that it was produced in, and you know roughly where it came in succession as far as when it hatched. But the key and the biggest part of it is the pairing number. Seems kind of silly, but with one pairing number and each ID number, you can go back to one sheet. One document shows every pairing number that occurred during that season. You can see the mother, you can see the father, you can see the dates that the pairing took place, you can see the genetics involved with each parent, and then easily access the parent's information from there, which I'll show you in upcoming slides and files. Okay, taking an actual look inside the male file, you will see on the first page here all of the males that I've received from other breeders. Start with M over here, just like I mentioned. These are all the holdback males that I kept back from my 2017 season. These are all of the holdback males that I held back from the 2018 season. Taking an actual look at one of the pages, you'll see that this gecko, M005, hatched then and I put purchase date as just the date that the gecko came into our home. I like to keep track of that moving forward. I received this gecko from John over at Gecko Boa. All of these are clickable links that will open up the breeder's webpage if they still have it. I say that because I've found some that have changed. The description, known genetics, what they've been tested against since I've had them, and then keep track of weight going down. I don't keep track of weight a whole lot with my adult breeders unless it's the females right before breeding season or right after breeding season, etc. It will show the gecko, the females that he's been bred to, when, and the pairing ID number of that breeding. All of those are also clickable links. For example, click on female 23, will take you to her page, which will go to the female file in a minute. And you can click on the pairing ID and go to the pairing file, which I will also go to in just a minute here. If you go down to look at things like male 25 here, received from Chad over at Ramsey's Reptiles, I keep track of any notable notes. This is an animal that was sold to me as het free, so I keep notes on what Chad reported to me was how he came to be proven het free, etc. Taking a look at the female file, you can see it's maintained in the same manner. Left side are all the females that I've received from other breeders through the years. This list is the 2017 holdback females. This is my 2018 holdback females. Having a look at one of their files, they look a little different than the male files. Obviously I keep track of when they've been bred, etc. Same thing, clickable link to the breeder. This is my pure marble eye girl from John over at Gecko Boa. Keep track of her weight. We'll show the date she was bred, to what male. That link is clickable to go to that file. Pairing ID, same thing, clickable to go to that file. Then I keep track of all of the eggs that she's laid, which eggs actually hatched. You can see her first year she did not hatch as many. This year she had a much better year. So taking a quick look at how the files interweave and interact, we'll look at male 004. This is his information, and he was bred to that female we already looked at, female F010. Click right on her, go to her profile, see that, and you can easily get back to the male's profile that way. And in either one, the male or the female's file, you could click on the pairing link to go to the pairing file, which I will go to in just a second to show you more on that. Taking a quick look inside of the pairings file, the first page just reads like a table of contents. I did not keep track of my offspring in 2016 in the same manner, so they're not on here. But for example, 2017, and we were looking at pairing 13, the het marble eye to marble eye, which goes to male 4, and we can get back, and female 10, and we can go back, and then the rest of the pairing years look the same so far for 2019. Even though we're a few days before 2019 when this is being recorded, we have had one pairing. So that's how the pairing list looks. So taking a quick look at the offspring file, we'll follow our pairing theme that we've been looking at and go to 2017 offspring. This will show all of the offspring from that year. We had 93 during that breeding season altogether. Same pairing we were looking at before. So this is 2017 pairing 13, hatchling number 2. Temperature sexed as a female, ended up being female. Her hatch date, of course. You can get to both the mother and father's profile by clicking either of the links. She ended up being a marble eye. And the only weights listed in the offspring profile are those before they are sold and or are transferred to the holdback file or adult female file, which we already looked at, and that can be accessed by clicking the link, the holdback link there. Well, I think that pretty much sums up most of the system. For example, this is in the actual gecko room, obviously, and that would be the card for MO4. Data hatch and date of purchase on the right side there. My awesome handwriting to keep track of weight. And I also keep track of who they were bred to in my handwriting on the back. And then that is transferred to the digital files at the end of each breeding season. For females, looking at F10, there are two things in here. Keep track of same stuff, but they each have a breeding card, and it will show the male they were bred to, their eggs, etc. And then that's transferred over to the digital files at the end of each breeding season, of course. I know that I probably could have gone into more depth, more details with this, but I wanted to keep the video as short as possible and just try to give a brief overview of how I'm actually doing things. I'm not saying that my way is the right way or the correct way. It's just the way that I'm doing it currently. That has already changed in the last couple years somewhat, although I think I've got it down to where I think it will stay most likely moving forward. If you happen to have any questions or anything like that, curious about anything that I didn't cover or didn't go into as much depth as you would like on, just comment below, either here or one of the many Facebook posts that I'm sure this will end up on, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks everyone for tuning in.